Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming today. We have the Inside CPA presentation part 2 today. With us, we have representatives from Morgan International, one of the international institutions who train for different certifications. Without further delay, I'd like to welcome Mr. Fadi Ganni, the CEO of Morgan International. Thank you.
Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to do this presentation. Actually, we go backward. We've done a presentation a year ago, I believe, and we are now in the process working with the AUS to enhance our collaboration. The way I'm going to do the presentation, I don't want to bore you with technical aspects. I will go over general overview why you are all here. 20 years ago, I was in your shoes. I was sitting at a university. I had this guy coming and talking about CPA. I graduated in international business, could not find a good job, did my research, found out that professional qualification will help me out, and that changed all my life since then. So the way we're going to go about it, I'll talk about the designation itself. I'll do some comparison. Then I will zoom in about the CPA exam, in terms of what are we requested to give you advice, what are the process to register for the exam, what you should do, how to go about it. So I'll give you a snapshot. The good thing is, I don't know if you're all aware that the exam now is offered in the Middle East. This is the first year that the exam goes international. We know in 2012 it's still expanding into 3 new regions. One of them is KSA, Brazil, and India. So the exam is going to go international. So let me start by, this is the other one. Okay. I'm not going to talk a bit, very briefly. Morgan, we've been in this business for 15 years. The type of programs we deliver is not we come up with the content. It's we utilize better professional education for the CPA exam. So our role is to make sure we're following the standards and the quality and following up with the students, putting them through the system. We train in accounting, audit, finance, human resources, IFRS, and we have various certifications related to facility management, supply chain. On an average, we have 4,000 students annually from the Middle East that take our program. We are present in 33 locations. So just to know where our distribution, AUS is going to be in Sharjah. We're teaming up. We work with the American University in Cairo, for example, Alexandria University, QFBA, which is Qatar Finance Business Academy, Bahrain Institute of Banking and Finance. So our distribution channel is not only through our offices. We work with a lot of universities in the region to promote the programs. Now, all of you, anybody does not have a clue what's a CPA? Or you all know what's a CPA? You all know what's a CPA? So the first thing I will like to tell you is that when you pronounce the word CPA, it's not the typical accountant what we are used to. Because whenever you say I'm an accountant, people think I am a person who's going to be doing debit and credit and compiling the financial statement. That's not really the role of a CPA. This, you can hire a chief accountant with 1 year or 2 years experience to do the job. There's a big distinction between a CPA and an accountant. Really, CPAs are business and financial advisors. They usually work either with the CFO office or the COO office. They work with auditors, external audit or internal audit. They have many functions and roles, which I'll go more in details as we move ahead in the presentation. And they provide services not only related to accounting. Like I've said, there's tax, planning, there's advisory, business valuation, mergers, acquisitions, and so on, many other services. In the US, in order to sign on financial statement, you've got to be a CPA. You have to have the license. You need to be licensed by a state board. And you have to maintain that license in good standing to be able to sign on financial statements and render an opinion on them. Like I've said, CPA are not accountants. Part of their job is accounting. They understand accounting, but they go more over and above compiling financial statements. So anybody can call, somebody with a business degree in accounting can call themselves an accountant. Not everybody can call themselves as a CPA. To become a CPA, you have to go through a process where you need your educational background, you need your experience requirement, then you need to sit for an exam, then you need to meet certain ethical standards to hold that title. And once you hold that title, it's not for life. In order to maintain it in good standing, you require to take continuing professional education. And when I see continuing professional education, these are type of programs listed anywhere in the world. You can take them in order to maintain your license in good standing. You have to stay up to date, basically. It's a license. The difference between CPA or CMA or ACCA is one is a license, the other is a certification or a charter. So the minimum requirements in terms of education, you have to have 3 years of university level. Ideally, we'd like you to have a bachelor degree. Soon, the 3 years university level will not be eligible to, it will not qualify you to sit for the exam. Finally, there is some background checks that will be done on you, which is after you sit for the exam, they want to make sure there's no criminal record on you, that you have not been involved in certain activities where your file is clean before they give you the CPA license. And more focus, if you look across all certification, more and more focus is on ethics and professional responsibilities. Now, comparing to the CPA to the CMA, we've been asked that question, what is the difference between CPA and CMA? Which one is better? A lot of people think because CMA has the management accountant is a higher level. Basically, they're both equally respectful. Each one is a different career path. They will cross path at a certain point, but there's no one certification better than the other. The main difference is that one is a certificate offered by the Institute of Management Accountant. The other is a license, which is offered by a licensing body from the state board. This is the main difference. In terms of career path, a CPA is more focused on public accounting. When I say public accounting, it's external accounting, audit, giving, rendering opinion on financial statements. So the career path is slightly different. A CMA is more focused internally within organization, where they're more working with the CFO or controller's office on budgets, variance analysis, analyzing the cost structure of the organization and so forth. So at the end of the day, if you're planning to be a CPA, the ideal pathway for you is to graduate, sit for the exam, start with the Big Four as a junior auditor, work for 2-3 years until you become senior or manager, and then you decide whether you want to continue on audit or not. If you don't want to continue on audit, you can always shift to the private sector, and that's where your salary will double, if not triple, because your experience as an external auditor is highly valued. While if you are a CMA, usually you don't start in an audit, you start within the company, and you build up from accountant to chief accountant, then to the controller's office, you could be a financial controller, a CFO, and so forth. At a certain point in the career, the two will cross over. But how do you achieve that? Whenever you're going to reach at a certain level, you have different routes that you can take, either through the CMA or the CPA. Both are equally important. Each one is a different. It's like comparing a lawyer and a doctor, or a doctor, an eye surgeon or heart surgeon. They're both doctors, but each one have a different specialization. As for the CFA, just very briefly, because people are always confused, CFA is more into financial analyst. You're more into portfolio management, investment banking, working for insurance, more involved in statistics. A lot of it is sales as well, selling financial products to potential investors. So that's totally different approach, knowing that in order to do that, 20% of the exam is accounting. So accounting is the basis even for the CFA on level 1. We can make more comparison between the CPA and CMA, but the focus I'm going to stay on today is the CPA. Now, top 10 reasons to become CPA. Why you want to be CPA? Well, anybody? You want a good career, You want to earn good money. You want to be respectful. You want to be globalization. You want to be able to travel from one location to the other, ensure that you will find a job. And as you know, more and more, there are more requirements for standardization across the world. You've heard about international financial reporting standards. Now, one of the changes on the CPA exam is that they test on IFRS. On my days when I took the exam, there was no IFRS. Now it is part of the exam. The exam is offered internationally. So, global acceptance, I would say, is the highest, where if you are a CPA sitting for the exam in UAE or in New York, there's no difference. When you apply for a job, they're going to look at your certificate, your license. It's as respectful as any person who sat for the exam anywhere in the world. There's no distinction. Credibility, it's a title, it's a license, like a doctor, like a lawyer. Credibility, it gives you credibility that you've gone through certain experience, you've done certain tests, and you follow certain ethical standards. It gives you a distinction. When we interview, I've seen it over and over. We work very closely with corporates, supplying them with CPAs. One of the things is that even if you're applying for a junior position, when they see you that you are studying or preparing for the CPA exam, they know that you are different than other people applying for that job. You've already planned your career path. You're serious about it. So it gives you some distinction from others who just apply as an accountant. They know where your target is. Recognition. You've passed the exam. It's an accomplishment. Let me tell you, once you've done with that exam, you're going to feel great. It's like when you graduate from university. It gives you competitive advantage because your experience to get the license is valued by customers, by your employers, and by everyone who will be working with you. Job security, in good times and in bad times, they need CPA. In fact, if we look at the enrollment, just to give you an example, when we had the financial crunch here in the UAE and in the rest of the region, our numbers were going up. A lot of people who've lost their jobs went back, got some education so they can find a job. In good times and in bad times, CPAs are required. Diversity of career options. Okay, and we'll go more in details. You're not going to be sitting behind the desk and adding and subtracting numbers and doing what you learn at university, the worksheet. You're more on the analysis side. You might be working in different industries, Hollywood, sports. We'll show you examples. Some people work in overseas in the entertainment business. So it's cross industries, it's cross boundaries. So you're not limited. You have certain functions and roles, but with more and more experience, your role will evolve. You might start as a junior auditor, but at a certain point, if you look at the partner in a Big Four, they hardly look at the financial statements. What they do is PR and getting clients and meeting with clients. Of course, it's an opportunity connection. You belong to a professional association where there's job banks. You can communicate with other associates around the world. So you belong to a professional organization, which is the AICPA, American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. And finally, it brings prestige and respect. Higher salary, better career, you're technically strong. All combined together gives you a competitive advantage that you will be proud of to the rest of your life. Any questions so far about the why you should go? Did I convince you or not yet? Now, like I've said, when I gave the distinction between CPA and CMA, you have to pick a career path. If you're planning, you have two choices how you go about it. The ideal way is throughout, by the time you graduate, you start looking seriously into the CPA exam. You choose the Big Four, or it could be the Big 10 audit firms. While the first year or 2 years you'll be preparing for the CPA exam, you climb the ladder, and that's the public path, where you join an audit firm, you work as an external auditor, you will be exposed to a lot of industries. Every day you have a different client that you'll go and audit their books. And that's one career path you can choose. Another is you can start off with a private company. When I say public, it means external audit. Private, you can be in the accounting or the CFO office, where you start as a junior accountant and you climb the ladder. Obviously, if it comes to me, the normal path for CPAs is start in audit and then move into the private, not the other way. You hardly find people starting in the private sector and shifting to the audit. It happens in the Middle East. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the other route is better simply because you will learn a lot by doing external audit. And the Big Four do not pay the best salaries in the world. You will find your colleague working in a private company probably earning twice your salary, but they know that they are training you, and they know that in 2-3 years, you're going to be making more than your colleague or friend, because it's part of the educational process that you go through. Of course, you can pick a third choice, which is work for the government, or you can become a university instructor. A lot of CPAs teach at various universities as a part-time. They have their daily job and they teach at universities. Why the CPAs are in demand? Just to give you a few statistics, it is expected through until the year 2018 that CPA will expand, the growth in the demand for the CPA will continue throughout till the year 2018. Another thing is that 75% of today's CPAs will be retiring within the next 15 years. So one of the reasons why the AI CPA went global is they want more and more CPAs. There's always shortage. So given those are statistics, of course, with the globalization and the need for standards across the world, there will be requirement for professional certification as well. Now, the positions in demand, if you look at statistics, this is in the US, it's not all applicable here, but a lot of the positions open are for tax accountant. When I say tax, it's tax planning. So it's a very complicated process. It's not about how much savings in taxes I can do. It's about, it can involve mergers, acquisitions, how do you save on taxes. It involves strategy, actually, on the highest level. Financial analyst, staff accountant, business analyst. It goes beyond numbers, financial controllers, and a lot of our work in financial services, insurance companies, in banks selling financial products. And like I've said, university instructors. Many of CPAs in the US teach at universities. We personally, Becker, we have around 120 universities where our programs are run in 120 universities where we utilize the CPAs who teach at those universities. Now, where do CPAs work? Like I've said, cross-boundary, different industries. These are just a few examples. This guy works for the music industry as a chief financial officer of Bad Boy Records. As you know, Puff Daddy, you all know him, I believe. Record company. He's always on TV, on each channel if you check it. This is another person who works at the FBI. In accounting, which has helped her chase down identity thieves, investigate crooked CEOs, and trace money laundering. So it's not only about audit. You can be in investigation. You can be in various functions within the financial community. And another person worked for Hollywood. You all know when they do the Oscars, one of the Big Four are always present to count the votes that happens and everything. And when you say Big Four, it means CPAs. So it could be exciting. It's not numbers and calculator and this boring accountant. Now, I'm going to move on. Just to let you know, one way to deck the importance of certification is just open some websites, recruitment websites in the region, in the UAE, and look at what are the posts for accountants. You will always find CPA or a CA or a CMA. And here that's from Gulf Jobs, from accountant job in Sharjah. You can see they're asking for a CPA. So if you do your research, you will find that most accounting positions, especially sensitive one, you're required to have a professional qualification. Now, in the US and even here now, we're starting the trend. If you're working in the Big Four, you cannot be a manager and be promoted higher if you don't have a professional qualification. You're going to be out of the organization. You will not reach a partner level without professional qualification. It used to happen, not anymore. Robert Half is the largest accounting recruitment firm around the world. They tell you as well, more than 25% of people who apply for their jobs have their CPAs. Many industry clients are asking for CPAs. In public accounting, they always want the CPA. So if you're working in audit, it's a definite you need it. If you're in the private sector, it's better that you have it. It's not a must. Do you want me to go over salaries, or should I go into the state boards directly, the applying process? Am I boring you, or you're okay? Yeah, it's good? All right, just to give you some statistics on salaries, we're comparing, this is the average mean, and these are statistics from not here, from the US. We don't have statistics in the Middle East. Just to give you a comparison, a non-CPA salaries and versus CPA for the same post, a senior manager will make around $160,000, while a CPA in the same post will make around $175,000. So there's always gap in the prices, in the salaries. If you look at the manager position and look at the numbers, there's always a gap. If you have 1 to 3 years experience as a junior, you start off in the US, if you're non-CPA, around 70, and if you are CPA, around 76. Now, you might find the gap between non-CPA and CPA is not that of a big gap. But you have to think about other things. Is to escalate the ladder, to go up faster, you will require, does not show the statistics. You will be going up the ladder faster pace. And if you're an accountant and you count the years and how much earnings you made more over the years, you'll see it pays off dividends much higher than if you were not certified. The salaries, like I've said, if you choose the audit, it's lower. You start making your salary after you've gained 3 to 4 years in auditing experience. That's where you start making the good money. You have the choice after 3 or 4 years, either continuing with the audit and becoming a partner. It takes you around 15 years to reach a partner level, and you have to have certain skills, or you shift and become a financial controller, a CFO, chief financial officer, or VP finance. This is usually the trend. Within 3 or 4 years, people either stay in the audit or they make the shift. Many CPAs make well above $1 million every year. That's if you're a partner level and above. Let's talk about the exam, and that's why I've been called to do that. The exam is made of 4 parts. Okay, financial accounting and reporting is part 1. Part 2 is auditing and attestation. Part 3 is regulation, and part 4 is business environment and concepts. So you have to pass the 4 parts in order to become a CPA. And they don't take a weighted average. So if you score 90 or 95% on 2 parts, and 75 on the 3rd part, and 74 on the 4th part, they're not going to take a weighted average. Each part has to be passed with a minimum of 75%. Financial accounting and reporting, it tests on US GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, and IFRS. If you are a US graduate, you've seen most of the topics. Some of the topics, it might go more in depth, but financial accounting is financial accounting wherever you follow in the world. So many of the topics will not be new to you, except probably governmental accounting. I don't know if it's being taught here.
You have a course.
You have a course. All right. Auditing and attestation is where you study the audit, the engagement, how you plan the engagement, what are the auditing standards, what's your responsibilities, what are the various opinions that you will give on the financial statements. Regulation, this is new to you. Federal taxation, ethics, professional and legal responsibilities, and business law. Now, let me tell you one thing. Funny part, this is very funny. If you look at the majority of the Middle Eastern candidates, the highest pass, I say we have a lot of students. The highest passing rate is the regulation. And guess what is the lowest passing rate? Financial accounting. Because, again, what I'm trying to hint is that it doesn't matter what's your background, it's how much time you put studying. A lot of people don't study the financial accounting. To pass those exams, you're not going to keep everything to the last minute and cram everything. A lot of people skim through the financial accounting. I've seen it at the university. While they are scared on the taxes and they memorize the tax section and they ace the tax and they fail the financial. If you look at the auditors with 3 to 4 year experience in the Middle East, they have the highest, the lowest passing rate is on audit. They don't even study the audit because I have 3-4 years experience. So the taxes is not rocket science. It's rules and regulations and how you apply them. Very simple. You study, you practice, you know them. The last paper is the business environment and concepts, which is, it tackles statistics, there's other skills, writing skills, and business concepts. Entities, how you form entities. You need to know, as a business, general concepts that you need to know in order to carry your job. In order to pass the exam, it's not rocket science. You need to study hard, but it's not impossible. A lot of people are passing the exam. The exam format, just to tell you, the auditing is 4 hours, the financial accounting is 4 hours, and regulation is 3 hours. So, and it's all 100% computer-based examination. So there's no pen and paper. You have 3 testlets. These are multiple choice questions. Each testlet is almost made of 30 multiple choice questions. So what you do is you do testlet number 1, you close it, you move into testlet number 2, you close it, you move into testlet number 3. These are where you see the arrow 60 points. And then you have 40 points, which is business simulation cases. You might have up to 4-7 task-based simulation, where they give you a case, and you might ask true or false, or they might ask you to write, come up with a statement of cash flow, or prepare an income statement. It could be any question. It's all computer-based examination, and it's like an open book, because you might have to do a research where you have access to the internet. So it teaches you not only how to apply the principle, is how to do your research as well. That's what the exam will test you on. And these are 40 points. Again, you move from 1 to 2. So once you close the testlet, you can never go back. So our advice always answer all questions, even if you don't have an idea. The financial accounting, like I've said, just very briefly, concepts and standards, it's around 20% and includes IFRS as well. Government around 10%, specific transactions around 30%, and financial statement 30%. If we look at the audit, the biggest chunk on the audit is professional responsibilities, understanding the entity and environment, performing the audit, and evaluate the findings. So it's all about the audit engagement, the findings, how do you document them, and how you carry your job. And the regulation, you study both federal taxes for both individual and corporate. So you have to learn how to do the taxes for individuals, and you have to know how to do the corporate taxes for corporates. So federal taxation, taxation of entities 21%, business law around 19%, ethics 17%, 13% on federal tax, procedure and accounting, and for property transaction around 14%, individual 16%. Do you know that, for example, one of the big 4 in India, they process individual tax returns for more than 200,000 U.S. citizens in the U.S. Most of the tax returns now for individuals are done outside the U.S. We've seen it more and more happening. Now, these are, if you see, there's a lot of emphasis on ethics, and you'll find it across the CMA, CPA, any professional qualification. For the business, the only exception is not 100% computer-based. You have 3 testlets. 85% of the exam is on multiple choice questions, and the last 15 points, which is 15%, is written communication. So you might ask to write a memo to the partner, or communicate with the client. Now, it's not an English test, it's not a TOEFL test, but they will assess how you approach the matter, what is the logic you follow, and of course you have to have the proper terminology. Like we tell you on the CPA exam, never use the word always or never. These are, so they want to make sure you have the professional aptitude towards writing and how you tackle certain things. The minimum passing grade is 75. Always, there are pre-test questions. What do we mean by pre-test questions? There is around 10% of the exam on an average, these are questions that are not marked. Which are those questions? We don't know. They're called pre-tests. What they do is they're testing the candidates' feedback. And based on the feedback that they get from the candidates, they will decide whether to include it in future exams or not. So if you are on the exam and you open the exam and you have like 10 multiple choice questions, one after the other that you have not seen, don't panic. Everybody is in the same boat. As long as you use your judgment and what you have learned throughout the course and you apply it, you should be okay. Under the business, you have corporate governance, economics, financial management, information system, and strategic planning. These are the topics covered for the last paper. Now, the CPA exam, how to apply? First of all, you have to be a graduate. There's no way you can sit for the exam if you don't have a university degree, accredited university degree. So the first thing is you need to bring us your university degree to have a look at it. The general rule, it varies from state to state. Let me tell you how the process happens. You have the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, and you have NASBA, which is the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy. So the AICPA, they have the mandate to look after the CPA exam. However, they delegated that mandate to the various state boards. All right? So the state boards are the ones that you will be communicating with to apply for the exam, and they are the ones who will communicate with you your grades. And they report back to the AICPA. So it varies from a state to a state. So if you sit for the exam in New York, the requirements are different than the exam to sit for the exam in Delaware. It's usually the same examination, it's called the uniform exam. One uniform exam, but the requirements to sit for the exam varies from state to state. Now you're going to ask me why is the difference if it's the same exam. It involves more than accounting. If there's a low number of CPAs in a certain state, they will require they will easy up on the requirements so they can have more CPAs into the exam. If they have a lot of CPAs in a certain state, then they will make it slightly higher. Not only that, there are other factors as well. The general rule, you have to have a bachelor degree, you should have a minimum of 12 credits in accounting, and you should be a business major. This is the general rule. It's tightening up. It's getting more and more difficult to sit for the exam. Soon, many of the states will require 150 credit hours. So a bachelor degree is not sufficient anymore. So you will have to have a bachelor degree. I'll go more details into it. We need to look at your transcript to see how many accounting courses you've taken, and based on the accounting courses, we'll advise you on which state board to sit for the exam. There are 5 or 6 state boards that are good for international candidates. Then, once we've done that, you need to do an evaluation, because your degree is not offered from the US. We go through a certain evaluation where you will send your official transcript, and they will attest that this degree is equivalent to a US degree. And they will say you've taken X number of accounting courses, X number of business courses, and so forth. I don't think AUS, I don't know if they're excluded from the evaluation. I believe you could be excluded because you're accredited from abroad. So you are excluded. So then you need to complete the exam application. It's all online, and you have to give it 6 to 8 weeks. Once you've filled your exam application, you will receive a paper called Notice to Schedule. This gives you the authority. Now you've been approved to sit for the exam. Please schedule the exam with the local testing center. You go with that paper to the local testing center, and you schedule the exam. You need to give it a bit of time. There's a lot of pressure on those examination sites. So you might take 2 to 3 months to find a spot to sit for the exam. So you need to plan it ahead of time. And like I've said, the exam is computer-based. Now, once you've sit for the exam, it doesn't mean that you are a CPA. You will have to meet the experience requirements, which will come to it. The exam is offered. There are testing windows for international candidates. So you can sit for the exam across the Middle East. When I say across the Middle East, is UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, Lebanon, Egypt, and soon Egypt and KSA. Only in the month of February, May, August, and November. These are the only testing windows. You cannot sit for the exam in December or in January. You have 4 months out of the year where you can sit for the examination. So you need to imagine a lot of people are applying. You need to plan this ahead of time. Now, the rules, if you go into details, it says nationals of those countries or with a valid residence visa. So anybody who is a national, local, can sit for the exam in the UAE. Or if you have a resident visa, like a work permit, you will be able to sit for the exam. Or you should be a national one of those countries: Kuwait, Bahrain, Lebanon, KSA, and Egypt. These are the Gulf. So somebody with a nationality Indian who comes to sit for the exam in the UAE will not be allowed to. They are allowed to if they have the local residency. Did you understand? So basically, in the place where you sit, you should either be a national or you're legally resident. You cannot fly off to another location if you're not meet certain requirements. Now, the CPA certification basic requirements is you have basically two eligibilities for the exam. One is to be eligible to sit for the exam because you need to meet the educational requirements. Once you've sat for the exam and you passed it, now there's another eligibility, which is the license, because at the end of the day, you need to, the license, usually they look at the experience requirement. So meeting additional for gathering the official certification license to the CPA. In general, most of the states require between 1 and 2 years of experience to get the license. And it has to be attested by a CPA, or a chartered accountant will be accepted. So when you do your 1 year or 2 years experience, you'll be reporting to somebody. If you're in the audit, you'll be reporting to the partner or manager. So your manager have to attest that you've completed the experience. And they're usually either a CPA or a chartered accountant. Now, what are the examples of the state boards that are common to international candidates? Basically, New Hampshire, California, Colorado, Maine, and there's Delaware. If you look at each state board, it's very complicated. I'm just going to give you a snapshot. For New Hampshire, you require 120 credit hours, including 12 business credits and 12 accounting credits. So what you require, if you want to apply to that state, you have to be a business major, which is 4 years, and you have to have a minimum of 12 credits in accounting and 12 additional credits in business. If you look at the state of California, it has to be 24 business credits and 24 accounting credits. So you have to be a major in accounting. If you're a major in business and you've taken accounting courses on the side, you cannot sit in California. It has to be a major in accounting. If you look at Colorado, it's 27 credits in business. 27 credits, out of which, out of the 27, 21 has to be business, and the remainder have to be accounting. So it varies from state to state. Maine used to accept any major. Now they've changed, they require a minimum of 15 credits, I believe, semester hours in accounting. So it's tightening up, and these are the states that don't require 150 credit hours, because the other states now are requiring 150 credit hours. Let me go up just to show you. Now, in general, my advice, if you're planning to take the CPA, take as many accounting courses as possible. If you're majoring in business and accounting, if you have the option to take electives, take your electives in accounting. It will make your life easy when you plan to sit for the CPA exam. So don't look at the courses which is boring, which is difficult, which is harder to pass, who is teaching that course. Look at the end result. You want to do the CPA, go for your accounting courses. Taxes, audit, internal audit, any course related to accounting and finance, take it. But focus on the accounting courses. I'm not going to talk about Becker. We will deliver everything for you. Now, like I've said, IFRS is becoming an important part of the CPA exam, which is good for us because a lot of, in this part of the world, they follow IFRS standards. And that shows the importance of the CPA becoming a global designation worldwide. It's expanding across the world. They're opening testing centers, and it is important that you follow through that trend. As of August 2011, like I've said, the exam is in Bahrain, Kuwait, Lebanon, UAE, and Japan. These are the only 5 countries in the world where you can sit for the CPA exam outside the US. Soon is KSA, Egypt, and India. I think we spoke with students who sat for the exam. We said, what was your experience sitting for the CPA exam outside the US? And the feedback was it's exactly the same experience as the US. There's no disadvantage of sitting for the exam. You have to go through the regular procedure and process. So you are lucky, because if you go backward 3-4 years ago, we had to travel to the US and stay for a period of time in the US to be able to sit for those exams. So this is basically, I can go more and more if you want. Well, I'd rather have it more dynamic, answer your questions and everything. I'm sure you have questions on state boards, what you should do, how many hours of studying you need to put. How many hours do you think per week you need to be studying for the exam? What do you think? 10 hours is enough? 12 hours? You will have 8 hours of lectures per week. There's an inverse relationship. I always say it. I've been teaching the course for 15 years around the world. And there's always inverse relationship while you're preparing for the exam. The more happy you are, the higher the chances you will fail. The more miserable and stressed out you are, the higher the chances you will pass. Not in a negative way. What I mean is you really need to be, how can I say, you need to be organized. Any free time that you have, you should be focused on solving previous exam questions. Your focus is on studying and solving previous exam questions. You have to forget about going out. It's only a period of 4 months. Look at the difference. Every minute you put, irrespective of whether you're a master's student or a PhD student, it's not going to make a difference. It's how much time you put studying. So, and you're stuck in traffic. We have something called flashcards. We'll give them to you to help you aid in the memorization. So I would say, if you're really serious about the exam, you need to put around 12 hours per week over and above the 8 hours of lecture time, 20 hours per week. That's the minimum on a weekly basis, where you can sit for the exam within 6-month period for the 4 parts. It's not bad. It's not bad. That's if you're serious. Now, statistics-wise, those who opt for the 4 parts from the first shot have higher chances of passing than those who take 1 part at a time and then sit. Because at the end of the day, the material is integrated. You might be in the audit part. In order to be able to answer the audit question, you need to know your financial accounting or the tax. If they ask you about deferred taxes, you have to know your financial accounting and tax accounting in order to answer such type of questions. So it's always better to cover the 4 parts together. Questions? Don't be shy. Yes.
For example, if I am from Kuala Lumpur,
Yes.
I want to sit for the exam. I can't travel here to UAE, or I have to go to USA.
Yes. If you're outside of those countries I mentioned, or if you're not a national of the Gulf, what nationality would Kuala Lumpur, like Malaysian?
Just give example.
Well, if you are a national of those countries and you live in Kuala Lumpur, you can sit for the exam here. But if you're a national of the foreign country and you don't have residency here, you cannot sit for the exam.
Because for our students, after they graduate, they might go back home, Pakistan, Iraq, whatever.
Yes.
If they would like to come back and take it in this country you mentioned, you couldn't.
No, you can't. They will have to travel to the U.S.
Question, it has to be visa, is it like students here, some of them are traveling from their home country and they have a student visa.
But student visa is a resident visa, correct?
Yeah, but after graduation, they will.
Yeah, as long as while you are sitting for the exam, you are legally resident in the country. So if you are on a student visa, which is you're legally in the country, you shouldn't have a problem.
What is your recommended time period to study? Like, after how many months should you study for the exam?
Oh, that's a good question. Once the course is done and finished, how long you should wait to sit for the exam? I would say maximum within 1 month to a month and a half after the end of the course, you should sit for the exam. There's no way, because I'll tell you 3 advices. 1, the longer you wait, the less chances you will sit for the exam, because there's so many technical aspects. The exam is not difficult. The difficulty is there's vast information, especially when it comes to taxes and business law, where you have to memorize certain things. And these are usually for short term. I'll tell you, you sit for the exam, after 1 week, everything is gone. Then you learn it through the experience. So 1. Second, if you wait until you're 100% confident that you know every detail on the exam, you can spend the next 10 years to gain that confidence. You will not get it. So you will not. It's not like a university where I have memorized every word, every line, and done all the exercises, and I know everything by heart, and I'm going to sit for the exam. On the CPA, it's not going to happen. What's important is that if you've attended all the lectures, and when I say attending all the lecture, I mean 100%, because if you miss one class, the chances, most of the people pass with a grade between 75 and 79. That's the majority. So missing one class can make a difference between you failing with a 73 or 72 or a 75. So attending 100% of the classes, doing 100% of the homework with no exception, reviewing the multiple choice questions minimum of 3 times, then you can sit for the exam. So you should have gone over the multiple choice question 3 times, attended 100% of the classes, then you're set to sit for the exam. And it shouldn't be more than a month and a half after the end of the course. You start dragging it, and oh, I'm not ready, I'm busy, and you start postponing. I have people with us who started with us when we launched the program in 1995, and they still call me up to today. A candidate in Lebanon, he's like 55 years old, and he's still getting reference books and preparing for the exam. And he probably knows the material inside out. But he is not having the confidence to sit for the exam. Most of those people who sit for the exam are immediately after the end of the course. That's when you're geared up. The trick is do it condensed, focused, get it out of the way. Some people tell you, oh, I'm going to take 1 year, 2 years to sit for the exam. That's too long. It doesn't work.
So the don't curve. Do the curve.
Do the curve. So you have to be devoted. I mean, we are currently in talks with the AUS. We're assigning a person. We are planning to launch soon the CPA. So the people will be advising you on how to do the homework. Everything is computerized, even the homework. We can track if you're doing it or not. Again, it's not like a university. Don't count on the instructor to come in and push you. They will push you. But the effort, those who pass and fail, is not because of the instructor. It's because of their personal effort. And that's very important. It's your personal effort that will help you pass the exam.
Well, here in UAE now, it's accepted as 120 credit until now for the CPA examination.
It's the state boards. Those states that I've told you about, yes, they are still open for 120 credits. But every year, they're closing down. When I say 150 credits, it doesn't mean a master's degree. It means it could be undergraduate level. You have to have 1 additional year over the bachelor. It doesn't have to be in master's program. It could be in the undergraduate program. It's still open, but it's closing down. Slowly, it will be closing down.
But, I mean, I don't think the majority of them know. Don't worry about it, because we are in the process of offering a 5-year degree, where it will lead to 150 hours. So as these are closing down, we are opening it to you to have 150 hours. So hopefully within a year we'll have the bachelor and the master. This is what we're doing. So you'll be able to sit in any state with 150 hours.
I think so.
The AUS.
Yeah.
Planning stage of 150 hours.
That's a good thing. You're lucky, because not everybody is like that. So the sooner the better. And I'll tell you, I sat for the exam in 1994. If I look at the material now, the material was that thick when I sat for the exam. Every day there are new tax laws, there are new business laws, there are new accounting is becoming more and more sophisticated and complicated. If you talk to a CPA who sat for the exam 30 years ago, it was totally different ball game than those who are sitting for here. So, And plus, once you graduate from the university and you're far away from academics, it will be hard to go back and study. So my advice, do it as soon as possible, even career-wise. When you go and apply for a job, you graduate and say, I am preparing for my CPA exam, the employer is going to look at you from different perspective. Any other questions? Yes?
How do you advise us to take it, like two papers by 2 papers?
Okay, it's always, if you really don't have time, you want to take 2 papers at a time, then we advise you take the tax and the financial accounting together and the business law and the audit together. All right, 2 papers. But my advice to you, finish the 4 parts and then sit for 1 part at a time. That's fine. Like cover the entire program and then start sitting 1 part at a time if you don't want to sit. Because, you don't want to be penalized on stuff that you have not covered. And you will figure it out when you start the course. Because in the first lecture, we cover income statement. And we'll be talking about unamortized gains and stuff that we have not explained. But these are directly taken from a CPA exam. You will find out that how things fall all together throughout the course. So my advice, cover the 4 parts. You'll be more protected to pass the exam. There was a question there?
Yeah, I want to ask, from the states that you've mentioned, are there any particular states where the application process is faster? Or?
No, it's all the same. It's centralized. There's no application. Even if you go to the US, you still have to sit for the exam at Sylvan Parametric Centers. So the process is the same. There's not state board easier. We hear rumors that if I sit for the CPA exam in New Hampshire, it's easier than sitting for the exam in California. It's not true. It's one examination, same process, same thing. It's just the requirements to sit for the exam varies.
So, I'm sorry, my question is not for the exam per se, but like the whole process where you apply online, it takes a certain amount of time. Is there any state which does it faster?
No, it's the same process. Now, it depends on the numbers of people sitting in that state board. Some states might have a faster response time, but it varies from 1 year to year and from one exam to the other. So really, you cannot make a general statement.
Is it possible that I take the exam in one state and work in the other state?
Yes, that's a good question. The question was, is it possible to take the exam in one state so you'll be licensed from that state and then work in another state? Yes. It's like a doctor. Again, you have your license to practice in Chicago, Illinois, and then you decided to move to California. You need to meet the requirements of California. So you transfer your 5 from one state to the other.
What about the state from which has 120 credits and you work for the state?
Yeah. Once you are a CPA license, the rules apply to you differently. But you still have to move from one state to the other. There's a process that you need to follow.
You need to sit for an exam as well.
Yeah, for example, in some states, they require you, after you pass the exam, you sit for a specific ethics exam. Okay, that's not it's an open book, it's an easy exam, but they want to make sure that you know your ethics. So if you're transferring to a state where you don't have that requirement, you will have to meet it. Yes?
Do you think you should start planning while you are doing the degree itself, like right now?
Which year are you in? No, it's too early. Once you reach your last year before graduation, you need to start thinking about it. But my advice, your preparation now, is choose every accounting course elective as possible. That's your preparation, by taking as many accounting courses as possible. Yes?
Now, if I'm a major in accounting and I want to take a minor in finance or maybe make it double major, is it really going to benefit me in the CPA, or accounting is just enough for...
Well, no, there are accounting and finance, there's close relationship. I'd rather that you take accounting before you think about finance. Take as many accounting courses as possible. Because accounting, you can go in-depth consolidation, foreign currency translation, and so forth. I'd rather, if you're seriously about the CPA, take your accounting courses. And if you want to be good in finance, the accounting is the basis. Trust me. Accounting is the basis of finance. I hope there's no CFAs I'm offending. But it is true. if you look at the CFA candidates, the lowest passing rate on the CFA exam is level 1. And when you do the statistics, because 20% of the level 1 is accounting.
We'll take our last question.
Yes.
For the states like California, they require only 120 credits for the license, but do they also need the 1 or 2 year working experience?
Okay, once you pass the exam, yes, you require the 1 or 2 years experience. But that shouldn't be a problem for you, because eventually you want to work. So the experience can be before the exam or after the exam. So what's important is to get that piece of paper from the state board saying that, congratulations, you've passed the exam, these are your grades. Once you meet the 2 years experience, you send them attestation of your experience, and it's a dramatic process. It's not complicated. One thing I'd like to do an announcement, that I have the okay, is that we'll be offering a scholarship to the Accounting Society, because they've done a good job in working out. And the Accounting Society will be working with the accounting department. We will be sponsoring 2 people, one for the CPA and one for the CMA. The process is to be decided between the accounting department and the Accounting Society how to do the election. So we'll be sponsoring the course with the materials and everything. The candidate will have to pay for the examination fees only and the evaluation. And this is to be communicated at a later stage.
Thank you all for coming. Ganni, do not forget to fill in the forms that are on your table. Will be collected. Please hand it over at the table over here before you.
Thank you.